And it just doesn't stop. Ladies and gentlemen, man, once again on the hit show with stories written by a current prisoner, man. You know, today's video is very unique, something different. I don't think I'll ever come across another video like this one. And somewhat of a lesson learned, man. When you do something very serious or severe to certain individuals, regardless of who they are or what their status is, you know, all rules and regulations just might go out the window. That's the truth. And, you know, we're on another note, I want your guys' feedback on another topic, you know, about an article that was produced in the Los Angeles Times by a lady by Erica D. Smith. She's a columnist. And it's a very unique article because it talks about inmate release wage. Now, for those of you that don't know, inmates get released with $200. And they're supposed to basically live life, start over, try to do what they can with those $200. Now, some people are very blessed and they have family, they have support. You know, they're able to you know, hit the streets running. However, some people don't have that support. You know, so basically they're trying to increase the wage from $200 to $1,300. Now, of course, I know some of you guys might be for it. Some of you guys might be opposed to it. So I want you guys' feedback, man. What do you guys think about it? It's a very interesting article. Go ahead and check it out, man, at the Los Angeles Times. But, man, go ahead and hit the like button and the subscribe button, man. That is if you like listening to prison interviews, man, and some video interviews directly straight from these California prison walls, man. This isn't a joke, man. This is real life, man. And think twice before you roll the dice, man, because it ain't nothing nice behind those California prison walls, man. Take heed, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for stopping by. So what did they call you?
Jake.
What are you incarcerated for, and how long is your sentence?
I'm incarcerated. My original sentence is assault on a peace officer with a firearm. And I got 34 years, 8 months with additional time for 4501, battery on a prisoner with a weapon, and battery on a prisoner with GBI. 2 separate cases. So altogether, I have a 49 years, 8 month sentence.
Where are you from right here on the streets?
Orange County.
Where in Orange County?
Huntington Beach.
Surf City, USA.
Yep, the original, not Santa Cruz.
Do you or did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, or organizations?
Yeah, I was from P9. All right. My name is Jake Marchesano. I'm from Huntington Beach. I grew up with a good family. I made the wrong choices and ended up the youth authority in prison. Kids from nice neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you make the wrong choices or the wrong friends, you can easily end up in a prison like me or in the youth authority like half of us here. Grew up in the system by one wrong choice, changed our whole lives. If you make the right choice, you won't end up in prison. It doesn't matter if you're poor or rich. The wrong choice, you'll end up like me. The right choice, you'll be out there living a good life.
1000%, my friend. I'm gonna go ahead and let you take over the floor, my friend, and go ahead and shine bright, my friend, and go ahead and share your story, sir.
All right. Like I said, my name is Jake. Jacob Marchesano. I go by Jake. I'm 45 years old, in prison for the past 20 years. I'm from Orange County. You know, I'm getting ready to go for my first youth offender parole board next year. So I'm looking for pen pals and people that will help me on a positive outreach to get me prepared for parole board next year. I got a story that
How can we reach you?
Prison, you know.
How can we reach you, sir?
Oh, you can reach me at Mill Creek State Prison on the Getting Out app. My last name, I gotta spell it because it's so long, is MARCHESANO, and my number is Victor 22953. So you can reach me on the gettingoutapp.com through GTL and send me emails. So my story is basically, you know, we can make the wrong choices in prison. You always hear about you fall into the inmates that lead you on. This one's a little different. So my story is, let's see where it starts. Thank you. I was in the cork and shoe at the time in 2009, July, for attempted murder of my cellie. I picked up at cork and shoe at the time. I picked up attempted murder on my cellie. When I was in the shoe building, I was approached by a CDC officer regarding these two trans. They set up inmates to stab one another that have either disrespected them in one way or another. These guards are smart. People say that they're lazy and this is the only job they could get in society, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. In some cases, they're even smarter than us inmates. They perfected these manipulation techniques that you don't even know what happened to you until later when you're in a cage replaying it and you tell yourself, what just happened? The guard, in my incident, the guard started making casual conversation with me regarding a couple of the inmates who were HIV positive, who were gassing the psych techs and the guards in Corcoran Shoe. For you listeners that don't understand what gassing means, that's when an inmate in prison will fill up a cup with urine and feces, let it sit, and throw it into a face of either an inmate, a guard, or a free staff that work in there. When a person puts feces and urine into a cup, one of the lucky persons who was gassed that day was a female psych tech who was also currently dating one of the sergeants at Corcoran Shoe. The guard knew I was angry for being back in the shoe for the attempted murder on my cellie and a prospect. And saying our video is going to end in 1 minute. The guards knew that I was angry at being back in the shoe and at the prospect of facing another prison term in court. The guards know that most white inmates view these attacks on women and children as the lowest of the low. Almost all inmates have this viewpoint, but mostly the whites are kind of known for picking up a shank and dealing with it. During the conversation with this guard, I told him that the train was a piece of garbage and needed to be staffed because of what he was doing. He was potentially giving someone a death sentence because of him being HIV positive. And for myself, this was a personal issue because I had an uncle who caught AIDS and died in the early 90s from someone. After I said this, the guard looked at me in the eyes to see if I was serious and said, "Do you want to do it?" I told him, sure. I didn't have anything against either one of these guys. The only thing they've ever did offend me was they gassed out the door into our trays because the officer feeds you in the shoe. We have these perforated doors. They got like little holes. So when they try to get a guard one day, they got our trays, which in the shoe, a hot meal means a lot. And unfortunately, I had to get a sack lunch that day. So I also knew by doing this, I was already facing a long shoe term for the attempted murder on my cellie. And by doing this, I'd get juice, meaning the officers would leave me alone. They wouldn't search my house. I might get an extra sack of lunch, maybe become the shower cleaner by doing this favor, even though the consequences for myself would be additional prison time and shoot term. So after I made the choice to do this, the guard asked me and said, what would happen if I was actually put on that guard on that yard with those inmates and he got stabbed? That he and the other officers would look the other way. I also had the personal reason, as I explained to the officer, about him gassing our food. So I gave him a second reason to justify it. Not only did the officer want me to do it, he convinced me using my own issue of the dinner, talking to me about, oh man, remember that time you guys didn't get that hot tray, it was supposed to be chicken, and now you guys had to get cold bologna because this guy wanted on us. Was done. So I agree. That night, when the guard and the other sergeant came to my cell, they moved me to a new cell in a different section in order to be on the same yards as both those inmates. When I moved into that cell, I an 8-inch piece of steel, a little cubby hole on the bottom bunk. The next morning, I had a little pocket in my jumpsuit. We have 4 or 5. In our jumpsuit, so I knew the shank would have to be in there. So how our jumpsuits are is a full suit. I had to make a little like sock pocket inside my leg. I knew that I was going to be stripped out naked before I was put on the yard and being wand by the hand, which is a metal detector they use for shoe inmates. But I knew that if I clowned around with the one guard cracking jokes, making comments, that he'd be preoccupied of talking shit, that he wouldn't search my jumpsuit. When the guard put me in the cage to be searched, the other guard that knew what I was going to do came over, removed the jumpsuit from me, and wand it without pushing the button. So covered up, because I had it rolled up into like you roll beach towel in a circle, and the knife was in a pocket. So when the guard came that was involved, just took it, ran the wand, but didn't push the button. I was extremely nervous because essentially for the first time in my life, I was handing a guard a knife. You don't do that in prison because they're considered a guard's your enemy. Number two, for all I know, they just were setting me up to hand them a knife so they can get credit. We caught an inmate with a knife. You don't do that in prison. I was handing my stuff back, and the tower looked at me when I was put into the sally port from the hole, and that they shoot from. And he told me, just Matthews, stop when I tell you. Then I hear both doors open to both doors. I walked through the one door where Matthews was on, and as I walked into the hard yard, I noticed that the inmates that were grouped up at the back of the yard, most of these inmates were nervous because the word was out that the inmates were on the green light by the convicts of the cops because the other inmates were in the wrong because they essentially allowing those two to be on the yard by not taking off on them. So the explanation is for them being on those yards with those guys and not dealing with them, they also got the green light. I knew a couple of the inmates from the yards in the prisons. As I walked up to the other inmates, I told them, watch, this is how the OC does it. As I put the shank into the towel, I walked over to Matthews. I opened up a little conversation with him to make him feel comfortable. I introduced myself. As I did this, I put my hand on his shoulder, let go of the towel in my other hand, and by the time it hit the ground, I was already stabbing him in the chest, the head, and the face. He started screaming, why me? Why me? As I stabbed him. His cellie that was on the back of the yard time yelled, that's my girl, and started running towards me while stabbing him, which was a shock because most of the times on the shoe hard yard, when you're stabbing somebody, their cellie will not get involved, especially when there's a weapon involved. I stabbed Matthews one more time, and I blocked what Atkins swung at me by stabbing him 3 times in the lower stomach. Matthews took off running to the back of the yard, the hard yard, to under the gun tower, screaming for help. At this time, I heard the inmates yelling to me, Jake, the Mini 14's out. And I noticed that the tower had the gun out. I then chucked the shake over the wall as hard as I could and got on the ground. Later, when I was in the holding cage, the guard who made the deal with me that was in the tower just kept yelling at me, God damn it, Marchesano, I told you, only one, not the other one. The guard had set up the whole thing, pointed out where I threw the knife for the squad to go and find it. Both inmates were ended up airlifted to Mercy Hospital for their injuries. Later, on the court in Kings County, both officers who allowed this to be set me up took this stand against me. They also lied. Even the guard that set it up, causing me to receive the maximum sentence of 12 years out of my sentence. This was a hard and valuable lesson I learned to never allow myself to be used for the guard's benefit, as they will play you as fast as the inmates do on the yard.